But, before we get into that, would you mind if we back up a bit? Because I would just like to know a bit about you. Like, how did you get to North Point, and what's been your journey, that kind of brought you to the season you've been? Because I don't know anything, so let's assume nobody knows anything, and just take us up to speed as to how you got to be where you are and how long you've been there and what your role is at the church.
You bet. Well, it's crazy. It's been a crazy ride. It's man, there's a guy. This goes back. I'll start with a guy named Dan DeHaan, and I was carpooling with his kids in elementary school. Little did I know, because I was young then, that Dan was discipling Louis Giglio and Andy Stanley. And I grew up in a different church, but around high school, came to First Baptist where Andy was the youth pastor, and got connected. We had a band for the youth group back in the day, in the 80s. We'd have a ton of kids come every Wednesday night downtown Atlanta, and Andy would write songs, and we had a band that played the music, and so we were creating music, even back then. And as I grew up, I found out about Louis through Andy, and then Louis ended up moving to Atlanta. Fast forward through college at Georgia State, and then I run into Louis comes here and wants to start this Bible study called 722. At the same time, Andy is beginning what would become North Point Community Church, and that began about a 10-year journey in tandem with Louis and the Passion guys and North Point. Both these ministries kind of starting at similar times, and I was just in the middle of all that. So wow. I was around when Passion was being born, and then North Point, and so came on staff here at North Point almost 10 years ago this January. But I've been leading worship through that whole time period, and we've been going as a church now for 17, almost 18 years. And so that's
you were
a short story.
You were there 7 or 8 years before you came on staff. What were you doing in the years before then?
Well, early on,
before you came on staff, I mean.
Yeah, I was traveling quite a bit with the Billy Graham Association. We did crusades back in the late 90s, and for about a 5-year period there, and then I was traveling doing retreats and camps and leading worship, just in different places in the country. And I would still lead at North Point, but I didn't come on, to a staff capacity until, probably 7 years into our beginning.
Yeah. Well, tell me about the last 10 years at North Point. How have you experienced the church kind of growing in its impact and reach? Because it really seems that you guys have been spreading out lots of campuses and more of like a national impact. So what's been your experience in the last 10 years of being a part of that growth and vision?
Man, it's definitely been quite a ride, and it seems like it's gone by really quickly. But we've Andy's been great to lead the charge on dialing in on a one mission, which is to lead people to a growing relationship with Jesus. And so, everything we do is to that end, and we try to simplify things down to that one mission, from our children's ministry to single adults to youth, whatever age group we're dealing with. And so that carries over into the stage. And I think because of the simplicity of that and the focus of that, it's just been ingrained in all of us as a staff, and we've seen God, honor that in a way. And it's just awesome to see. It's awesome to see the growth, but it's more awesome to see changed lives and hear stories about what God can do. And I'll be the first to say it's absolutely amazing to see what He's done at our churches. But I also have the opportunity to, talk to guys around the country and other worship leaders that I have a coaching system that I've set up, and it's awesome to see that God's up to so much in churches all over the place, and His hope and His restorative hope weaves itself into all kind of different, expressions and different facets in the kingdom on this earth right now. So, but it's been amazing to be on this ride, and to see the growth, but more importantly, just the changed lives as we look back.
Did you say before when in the early years Andy was writing songs? So is he a musician? Like, does he have some of the background?
He does, and he was playing guitar. Actually, taught me some guitar riffs and stuff early on, and
really?
it had a really, I think, major impact on me. I mean, I remember riding home from youth group with my parents, and Andy had decided to put together a youth band. And my parents were the ones that encouraged me to jump in and try out. And sometimes I look back and go, God, I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't have said I'll try out and just kind of go for it. But he is a musician, man. He's a great keyboard player, plays guitar, and doesn't do much of that anymore. But he's chosen to focus on communicating. He's just a brilliant communicator. But that marked my life, and then Louis coming along too with the Passion Crew and the guys there just getting into worship music was huge. But man, it really, I can't overemphasize how much it helps as a worship leader having a pastor that understands music and really cares about what it feels like to be a musician and kind of the angle that we all bring to things on our staff. So
yeah, that's so great. I think Louis probably much like that, like a pastoral leader in the Passion movement. But obviously he's had a hand in many of the songs that have been written and writing with Chris Tomlin and other guys. That he's one of the names. And obviously Chris and those guys have come to him going, "What do you think of this song?" And how he's doing it. And so does Andy have some like, how does he engage with you guys as far as the worship pulse of the church? Is it just more from a broad perspective, or do you really still feel like he cares about the music sort of style and approach and the worship thrust at North Point? Do you sense that he's engaged in that even now?
Absolutely. He's very engaged and very as a musician, I think has a keen ear and heart to want it to be excellent, want it to be good, but want it to be authentic, with what songs we're doing, and man, we do a lot of different music at North Point. We do songs from all kind of different writers. We also have a label and a publishing company set up here because we've got some artists and guys that have been writing for quite a few years that have written songs that have worked in our environments, in our churches, and man, we're all passionate about continuing to try to write songs to give the people that come to our churches a voice to sing and something to say to God. And so but he's definitely involved in encouraging in that. And as we come out with records or we're trying to write different things, he definitely has a voice and encouraging voice, especially in that.
Mhm. Can you tell me a little about the breadth of the musicians that you guys pastor and shepherd and build up at Northview, like from the artist side, right down to if I was, a guitar player and I started coming to your church and wanted to plug in the choir or whatever, what's the full breadth of how you guys engage with musicians at all different levels? Can you just give me sort of the flyover of the music program at North Point?
Man, we've got a lot of musicians involved, and we have an environment for middle school called Transit. We've got a whole crew of musicians that a lot of the guys and girls will plug in to play and lead at Transit, and some of those musicians will be involved in high school ministry, leading in those as well. And then we've got our main service stages with 5 campuses here in Atlanta, and each of those environments has band and musicians. So we've got a lot of musicians, and shepherding those with 5 campuses can be a daunting task. We've got music directors at each campus that have pastoral desires and hearts for these guys, so they're keeping tabs with families and what's going on there and loving on the people that serve at their churches. So that's how it's broken down. And we also have different things that we try to be intentional to do, on a weekly basis, in our green rooms as we're preparing for what we're going to do to lead. We're about to have actually this week a pretty big gathering up in the North Georgia mountains where we take our musicians up and our worship leaders to pour into them some. They give us so much, and just to get away and be still for a bit and get to know each other a little better. But I've actually been mentoring a lot of our worship leaders over the past 4 years, but we've got a lot of just amazing musicians as well, and really coming around this idea now that we're all worship leaders. I hate to segment musicians into some category and then worship leaders in another, but I think my broad view for all of our musicians here is we all are worship leaders, regardless of what instrument we're playing. Whether we're sitting behind a drum kit or holding a guitar, or playing a keyboard, or we're singing. We all come at it from the angle now that we're all worship leaders, and our job is just to reflect Jesus each week to the people attending. You there, Ryan? Hello?
Hey, sorry.
Hey, dude. I hear you now.
Okay, good. I lost you. I don't know why it just cut out, but we'll continue.
Yeah, we're here.
Cut that out of the recording.
Okay.
We're all good. Okay, keep going. So you were telling me about the artists and musicians
yeah. A lot of our musicians are professional musicians. When we started North Point, we had quite a few guys, myself included, that were, it's what we did for our livelihood, and then we started involving session players from the Atlanta area. And over time, 17 years later, that's grown to a group of over 100 musicians, and we've got a ton of drummers, ton of guitar players, and so the quality level of what we aspire to was really set early on by the guys that kind of kick things off for us. And we really try to view music and what we put on stage as raising the bar to a place that it's not a place for everybody to be involved. That's not our goal. It's like, hey, anybody that wants to sing, come sing. That's not the goal. And as I coach guys, I tell them, in Chronicles, I love this verse. It says Kenaniah the head Levite was in charge of singing, and it says that was his responsibility because he was skillful at it. And there's a bit in Scripture about having skill and being plugged into your gifting. And so our process, basically, we'll audition and listen to singers, listen to players, listen to musicians. We want to hear their story, to see where they're coming from, what their story is in relationship with Christ, how that's how they met Him, how it's growing, what their family is like, and just where they are, and combine that with what they're doing musically, and see if we have a match and they're a fit to be plugged into what we're doing. And so that's basically. I know it's a short description. You can ask more questions, but
no, that's great. It's great to get that perspective. Well, why don't we just fade a little bit into the Christmas theme?
Yeah.
We want to talk about the album, but before we go into the album, just give me a sense of how when do you guys start thinking about Christmas at North Point? Have you been thinking about it since like February or March, or how big of a production is Christmas at North Point? How significant is that season for you?
Man, it's really important, and it's kind of it's a blessing and a curse because every year we really try to up the bar on what we did last year.
Yeah.
So, we usually end and then go, oh no, that went so well, and we've got 1 year to try to figure out how are we ever going to top that. And Andy talks about when we do something excellent, it then becomes what's expected. So people come in. One year we did this iBand thing with iPads, and that was fun, creative. We had no idea that it was going to resonate with people the way it did, but we did. And then when it was done and it had hit YouTube and all these people were talking about this iBand idea, we're all kind of sitting in a circle going, okay, what are we going to do next year? Acoustic guitars on stools, and we wish you a Merry Christmas. I don't know. But it's always, it's always in our minds. But really, we had a big meeting with our service programming team about a month and a half ago, and really tried to welcome and brainstorm as a team of 5 campuses. And Evan McLaughlin, our SPD director, led that charge. And so we all put a bunch of ideas in the pot, about a month ago, and we're now kind of boiling that down to what will become, what we do for Christmas. So it truly is a team effort for us, and there's so many creative people plugged in on staff in our, in our programming departments, and sometimes it's crazy how an idea that somebody can have will become what ends up being something that everybody at all the campuses ends up being blessed by. It's a fun process.
Yeah. And this album, Let There Be Light, has that been in the works for a while? You've done a couple of Christmas albums now.
Yeah,
so we into your plan?
We did a Christmas album a few years ago, and it was really successful for the label I know here, and we got a lot of really good feedback from trusted sources on it. Nathan Knuckles produced that one. He did a great job, and Matt Williams, who's our executive producer here, coordinated that. And a lot of those songs, when Christmas comes around from working in a church, it's like, well, okay, how are we going to do "Oh Come All Ye Faithful"? Are we going to do it the traditional way, most of the stuff we do from a church and a label perspective comes out of, guys, we need to pull off something new and fresh. And that first record really came from that. It's like we've been doing some new arrangements of Christmas carols, just to update them somewhat. Let's put them on a project. That record went really well, and there was talk about doing kind of part 2 to that, which is what this current record, Let There Be Light, is. And man, it's really neat because on this project we've got so many different singers from our different campuses here in the Atlanta area, and songs that were written by some of our artists, and the performances and the songwriting I'm just really proud of. But take the opening track, Hallelujah, was it's kind of how things go down around here. There's a need, there's a need. Hey, we need a Christmas opener, and we don't know what we're going to do. And one of our artists, Eddie Kirkland, partnered with a guy on our staff named Jared Hamilton, who's just a really good arranger and a creative guy. Eddie had this idea to do an "Oh Holy Night" kind of verse thing. Jared came in with some programming idea and chord structure, and then I came in on that to help with the chorus, and all of a sudden you have this team effort, and we wrote this opener, and it's what we did a couple of years ago to open all of our Christmas, our Christmas service at North Point. So what you hear on this on this project is a lot of that happening. This was birthed out of the need for what we needed for our campuses or our church, and we put it all down, and the work's been done, and here it is.
That's awesome. Hey, let's just continue kind of looking through some of the songs and arrangements. We don't need to talk about all of them, but especially some of them more original ones, and any others that if there's arrangements that you think are really great to highlight. But Dawn is Breaking, I was listening to that this morning, and it sounds like a very powerful, great song of worship. People are always looking for some fresh, Christmas-oriented, theme song of worship at Christmas that doesn't sound like a Christmas carol. I think this is a great option. So
absolutely.
So tell us maybe who wrote it, or what's the story behind how that one came together.
Yeah, Eddie Kirkland wrote that song with Brian Brown, and Yeah, Eddie's such a prolific songwriter, and you know, the first time I heard that song, it kind of came in at the last hour. We were looking for another original, and one of the guys in the label was asking Eddie if he had anything, and he threw that out there as an option. And Ryan Stewart singing on the project, and you know, it's just another example of what happens when, you know, good writing meets great production, and it found a home on here, and yeah, it's a great song. I love it.
Yeah, I like the image that, you know, the theological concept of the incarnation and God breaking through, and that's that kind of, you know,
absolutely,
and Jesus coming to the earth. That's the heart of that song. So really great.
Yeah.
Well, as you look at on a list of the other songs, why don't you can maybe kind of guide me through? Are there some other songs that are unique or original? You've got "Oh Holy Night" and "What Child Is This?" "Unto Us," is that a original song?
Yeah, "Unto Us." I've been we were going to do this record like a year ago, and so I had started writing verses on that song. And sometimes as a songwriter, you know, you get to a point where you're like, man, this part feels really good, but I don't know what we're going to do on this other part. And I had gotten some feedback from Nathan about him really liking the verses, so made a trip up to Nashville and partnered with a couple other writers, friends of mine, Jessica Campbell and Michael Farron, and we sat in a room and within an hour had the chorus done and the bridge done. And so that's how that song came into fruition. But you know, "Hallelujah," the opening track, we used that song as an opener for this Christmas service, and it was a pretty powerful opener to use. I think as far as congregational stuff, "Dawn Is Breaking" and "Unto Us" probably would be potentials for new singable options that have the Christmas theme to them that aren't traditional songs. But
talk to me a little bit about some of the other Christmas songs, like even, you know, you got "I'll Be Home for Christmas" and the Christmas song and some of those sort of secular classics. But let's just kind of talk about at Christmas time, obviously the audience that you're reaching, lots of people are coming in, you know, they're not from church. Many churches probably are asking that question of, you know, how far do we reach into their world of familiarity? And Christmas time is probably the season when you have that opportunity. So maybe let's just kind of talk about that a little bit. You know, certainly it includes the topic of using songs like that, and just but more broadly, let's talk about how you reach the non-churched, you know, or the people that just come at Christmas and Easter kind of thing, and trying to draw them into a world that does involve a God and, you know, a real message that's got some eternal value to it. But there's a bridge to that.
Yeah.
So how do you guys approach that?
Well, man, you're touching on something that I think for us is it's definitely, we see a bump in people wanting to seek out faith and be in church at certain holidays like Easter and Christmas is that. But with everything we do here at North Point, you know, and I even working with worship leaders try to focus guys in on this. You know, just leading believers, reminding believers of the truth, but at the same time helping people who may not have a relationship with Christ understand what we're so excited about. You know, that's a huge thing for me. We want to absolutely proclaim, you know, Christ is born, but at the same time help somebody who may not know Jesus. Guys, we want to tell you what's happened to us and what we believe God can do for you and celebrate that together. But in answer to your question, you know, I've got four boys. Two younger sons play football, and there's a friend of mine that I've met this season. We've been doing a lot of hanging out together, named JD, and I told him we were working on a Christmas record. He doesn't go to our church, and you know, I don't know that he attends church regularly anywhere. But when I told him we were doing a Christmas album, he said, "Man, I got to have a copy." And you know, when we got done with the record, it was a no-brainer for me to say, hey, JD, here's the project. You know, we've been talking about it. We've been mixing this, and here it is finally. Check it out. And there's something about these songs, you know, songs that, you know, are just, I don't know if you call them secular or whatever, but there's something about the memory of Christmas, I think, for people that provides an emotional attachment to a season or a person or people that aren't here anymore. And that there's a place in everybody's heart because they remember, you know, the times around the tree with the people that aren't here anymore. But we, you know, we're able to capitalize on that common, you know, connection with everybody that comes through the doors of the church, and then take it from, hey, you know, the warm fuzzies everybody's feeling with, you know, the hot chocolate and the fire roaring and chestnuts roasting on an open fire. We're able to say, you know, God created all that, and more importantly, He is the hope for the continuation of that for eternity. That, you know, those relationships, He's a redeemer, He's a restorer, He's the healer of the world. And so what an amazing time, you know, at Christmas to connect people who are, you know, just really coming to church because it's what you do, to definitely, there's this season and we all, you know, love celebrating this, but guys, more than a season, we want you to meet a Savior who has the potential to, you know, restore broken people. He has the potential to make right things that are wrong right. And man, that just preaches for Christmas and Easter and the whole year. So that really is the message of the church and the message of what we get behind. But you're right, man. Christmas is such a beautiful time because it is that time where families gather. And everybody has these memories they bring into the, you know, picture at this time of the year. Yes,
awesome. Hey, I've got a few people who are asking some questions who are listening in. So do you mind if I bring some of them in? I'm not going to bring their voices in, but I've got the questions that are sent to me. And I just want to encourage those of you who are listening in, if you want to ask a question, there's a little icon up at the top of your screen, and you can just type it in there, and it'll get sent over to me. And if we can fit it in, then that would be great. So Debbie's asking about Christmas Eve. She's saying, do you have services on Christmas Eve, and how many, and what times do you have them? So why don't you just tell me a little bit about how you guys navigate through Christmas Eve with all the people coming through North Point Church? Just kind of a practical question.
Yeah, we actually don't have, it depends on where Christmas Eve falls. You know, I think a lot of churches traditionally meet for church on Christmas Eve or Christmas. We'll have our Christmas celebration based on, you know, kind of where the weekend falls in relationship to the actual day of Christmas. And then one thing we do, which is really, you know, I don't know how many churches do this, but one thing we do as a gift to our volunteers is the Sunday after Christmas, we kind of shut down the place and just say, hey, spend some time at home with your families. And so, you know, a lot of people are traveling on or around Christmas Eve or the day, so we usually try to plan in such a way that people can actually come here before they head off to go to their families or travel or get out of the state. So, you know, if it happens to be a Friday on Christmas Eve, we'll do a service on a Friday. If it's a Saturday, we'll do it on a Saturday. You see what I'm saying? If it's near the weekend. But we usually try to nab the weekend right before, closest to Christmas or Christmas Eve as it comes down the pike.
And really, I like that, really trying to think about, you know, all the family things that people have going in that season, trying to be sensitive to that. Cause, you know, there's lots of time for Christmas programs all through December.
Right.
And I think it's really true, just as I'm thinking, even as we were talking about some of the quote-unquote secular songs, that at Christmas, you know, and the Christmas music, it's really a time for people connecting with family and thinking about, you know, the things that are very significant to their lives, the relationships. And obviously it's important to have, you know, the message of Christ infused in all of that. But
absolutely,
I think it's important also to give people some space just to rest and enjoy their mom and dad and brother and and not just feel like it's this massive, busy expectation season, that church can kind of put on.
Man, it's and that from working in a church, it's like we're notorious for just, hey, doors got to be open, but man, we're fortunate just to have. I mean, I think Andy really gets that and has led from the top down that we really want family to win here, and we're never going to we don't want to sacrifice family for what we're trying to do here, and so we're going to try to schedule things in a way that way.
I have a quick funny story. This is probably like my best Christmas Eve ever as a worship pastor. And it was back in 1996 up here in Vancouver, BC. And so I was preparing this Christmas Eve service, and I was really, really stressed, feeling the stress. It's about 2 or 3 o'clock Christmas Eve, but the snow was just coming down like in droves. And there must have been 2-3 feet of snow all over the parking lot. And about 5 or 6 o'clock, they decided no Christmas Eve service, and it was just like this massive weight lifted off of me, and I could just go home and light the fire and just enjoy my wife and kids. And so I'm chalking that up as my best Christmas Eve ever.
Dude.
But
man, that's funny, right? And the same way we love we love the Sunday that we get a break after Christmas. Our staff, our volunteers, everybody gets to just stay with family and, have some extended time. And man, we're so busy. You know that from working in a church, but you're so busy. Sunday's coming, and it seems like every next day or every other day is service. So it's good to have a little bit of a pause.
Yeah, so for sure, for any of you listening in and, if you're feeling the stress starting to come on, I don't know that I can take all that stress away from you, but I identify with you, and I just want to encourage you to find some moments that you can plan into the season to just rest and reflect and have some quietness, because I think that's important. It's important that obviously as worship pastors and leaders, it's our job and in ministry to provide a context of music and the teaching and all of that goes through the Christmas season, but I just hope that we can all retain our sense of humanity through it all as well. I just think that's important. I feel for all you guys. But, this next question comes from Chris, and it's not so much Christmas-oriented, but he's just asking, what's your creative process for writing songs and making arrangements with your team? So why don't you talk to us a little bit about that?
Man, we've got we really started from a songwriting standpoint with just surveying the landscape and seeing who was writing, and not just who was writing, but who was writing songs that had gotten traction, either in a live environment at one of our campuses stages, or just guys that were really writing some great songs, and we're serious about it. So to anybody that's desires to write out there, it's like, man, it's such a fun thing to do, but it's also challenging, and to get to get good at it, you just got to do it a lot. So we start with really just surveying and seeing who's showing some promise, even with that talent or that gifting. And once we've identified those guys, sometimes we'll co-write together, sometimes we'll partner with other writers, in Nashville or, in our community. And as we work through songs, sometimes we'll bring in our music directors from different campuses to help with arrangements. Because ultimately, we want two things. One, if we're doing an artist project where it's just like, for instance, Casey Darnell just came out with a new project. If Casey does a record, you want to be able to listen, to it in your car and enjoy those songs. And some of those songs are just songs he wrote that are, near and dear to him and his view of life based on, his family. and his relationship with Christ personally. But then there's songs on there that you might want to put in a corporate environment. So we'll bring those to the table as a team and look at them and see, hey, how can we help this song? Number one, do you guys feel like this song has legs to potentially make it in our live environment? If so, what do we need to do to the song to help it stand on its best footing, to give it a chance? So we involve input from that. But music's hard, and you guys working in churches know this. It's so subjective, and what one guy likes chocolate, the other one likes vanilla, and it's really tough because it is such an emotional and personal thing. So I think one of the best things to do as a budding songwriter, if you're starting out, is to remember that comments about what you're trying to create are not comments about your identity. And that's something that it took me a while to learn. It's like, guys, this is just a song. It's not you. And when I was younger, I would write and I'd kind of walk around and, you'd kind of hope people would be like, hey, that's a great song, or I really like that song. And you put that arrow in your quiver or that fuel in your tank, and it'd make you feel like, okay, I'm doing something worthwhile. And then other times you'd hear comments like, I don't like that song, or I don't like, this. And then you'd walk around with your head held low going, man, I'm a failure. Well, that's not true. Yeah. It's just the song may not be good. And I think the biggest thing I could tell writers is, man, you're empowered by the Spirit of God. You're a redeemed child of God, and He's gifted you with gifting to do what He's called you to do. And sometimes that takes working out, and practice. And sometimes it's like, sometimes as people who want to write, we say, man, I really want to write songs, and we try, but we're not that good at it. That's okay, because God's not going to give you, He's not going to, point you in the direction of something for His kingdom that when you do that, other people don't go, God created you to do that. So when you do what God created you to do, people stand back and go, wow, that was amazing. So I would just say, with the writing process, look at some successful songs, and I've done that before. It's like, go to the CCLI Top 20 and ask, okay, what is it about these songs? Get your team together. What is it about these songs that's helping people connect and be able to sing and express these songs to God? And let's write down some observations. Okay, now in our church, let's take some of those principles or observations we made, and let's get our team together and let's try our hand at this, and pull in the people that seem to have more of a bent toward it. But in the midst of trying to birth those and get better at songwriting, just know, man, ask for criticism from trusted sources. And as you get that criticism, it's not a critique of you as a person. It's a critique of the song. And the more we can separate ourselves from that, the better off we'll be, and the better off we'll be able to walk home and see our wives and our families with our head held high and know that it's not an indictment on who we are as a person. So that's a long answer to a short question.
No, it's really good. I was just sitting in on a seminar this last weekend with Jason. Ingram was part of there. And I'm sure you know the name Jason, but many people maybe listening in don't know his name unless you look at the author credits to a lot of the songs that we sing, because he's part of One Sonic Society. But just he writes with Chris Tomlin and Matt Redman and Hillsong guys, Reuben Morgan. I mean, it's just so many songs. I looked up in CCLI. I think he's got over 650 songs that he's a part of. But one thing he said in his little talk that really, kind of jolted me, he said he probably wrote 600 to 700 songs before any of them ever crested into songs that you and I would know. And just, how many songs did a great songwriter like that have to have, laid to the side as he just kind of developed the craft and had to kind of work at it. So it is a craft, and it takes work. And
it does, and it's for every guy that writes 100 songs, rejoice if there's 3 that your church sings. It's like that's huge, you know, because you think about it, if you do craft something and you know, are able to write something that really connects with people, that's an awesome thing, and it is great to be involved in that process, with the ultimate goal of just, you know, encouraging the body and giving people voice to things that's true about God and responding to who He is and what He's done. But Jason's right, man. It takes the people that are really good at it write all the time, and there is a ton of stuff that if you or I were to listen to it, you would be like, that's not good at all. And so
it's on the cutting room floor.
Totally. There's a lot of it, you know.
Yeah. Hey, you know, I'm interested, now this is a question just from me. I'm interested in what you've done with this coaching system that you're talking about. I think I've heard about it before, but could you just kind of give me a little background as to how that came to be and what you actually do? Is it part of your ministry at North Point, or is that just something totally separate? Why don't you tell me a bit about that?
No, it's something that's separate, but it came about. I had visited a friend in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and they had just moved into a brand new building, and my band and I had been down to lead worship for their people, and it was just a great time. And as I was flying out, I was just thinking to myself, I was like, Lord, I wish there was a way for me to walk alongside, you know, Daniel and the guys down there for a bit of time. And, you know, just give them, you know, be a sounding board for what they're doing, because they were really asking for help. They wanted insight, you know, from my experience of doing this for the years that I've been doing it. And so really I started working with them, and then, you know, over the course of that year, started getting the word out just through Twitter. And, you know, it's been 3 to 4 years now, and about 85 one-on-one video coaching sessions with leaders from around the country, and it's turned into something. It's definitely something I do on the side, but I'm really passionate about it. I love worship leaders. I've been, you know, in that seat for a long time and been around worship leaders for a long time, so any opportunity I have to peek into the world of what the worship leader I'm working with is doing, and video gives us that capacity, you know, to see and then begin a relationship and go on a journey together for some weeks. It's so fun, you know.
Mm-hmm. So is there like a website, or can anybody do this, or do you have to like pass a, you know, qualification to get in with you?
Yeah, you can. Man, there's not a website right now. We're working on that, but there's usually if you follow me on Twitter and pay attention to that, I'll usually just send out a tweet that says something about, hey, we're booking, you know, next coaching season, and, you know, people sign up on a Google Doc, and then I call people back and find out a little bit more about them, and it's fun. Man, I really love it. It's really fun.
Sounds kind of like low tech, high tech. You know, it's very personal and yet it's online and virtual. Well, that's great.
Yeah, we've done, actually the past 2 months, we've had a group coaching option where I've got 4 leaders in each, you know, I'll take 4 leaders on a month journey together as a team. And what's great is they're able to get to know each other from different parts of the country, and I facilitate that, and it's fun. It's kind of like, you know, what we're doing here, but it's on video.
So it's like a group, you know, basically Skype video. You got all 4 of their images on your screen, and you're just talking to all of them from wherever they are? That's how that works?
Yeah.
Wow. You know, that's so great. Such a great world we live in that you can... I
know. We couldn't do this 10 years ago.
Yeah. Do you connect with people in other countries, or is it mostly from North America?
Well, not, you know, we've had the guy that was interested from Ireland now is in Atlanta working, kind of serving here with us, and we've got some guys at the churches. North Point has some campuses, one in Venezuela, one in Mexico, and now a friend of mine, Seth Condry, who's also one of our artists, is in Costa Rica. And so in that capacity, yes, I've been down to Venezuela, and Seth and I have had a mentor relationship for a couple of years now, and he's just a sweet guy, and so we keep in touch, and yeah, but it's not been a worldwide thing yet.
Yeah. What do you find are some of the most common needs that people have in that kind of one-on-one coaching sense? Do you sense kind of a theme or a need, or like what is it specifically that worship leaders need that coaching for?
Man, that's a big question, and I could tell you a lot of things. I think two of the things, Ryan, that come to mind. First of all, I work with a lot of leaders who were put in a role and they're doing their job the best they can, but I think to clearly define this opportunity that we have week after week to get up in front of people and allow the power and Spirit of God to allow us to reflect His love and joy to people in a way from stage, and understanding their identity in Christ is huge. Who they are, what Christ did for them, and John 15 is huge for me, Ryan. It's like Jesus is saying, abide in me. Apart from me, you can do nothing. And so this idea for us as leaders that, in our own strength, we're dead in the water any Sunday we get up. But to come out on stage week after week and just take a deep breath and say, Lord, your power, the same power that raised you from the dead, Ephesians chapter 1, is in me to breathe life, to proclaim hope to every single person in this room. And, I think as worship leaders, we get so focused on, do I remember these lyrics? There's the confidence monitor. Is the band going to play this right? There's so many technical things going on that we're responsible for. And for a lot of worship leaders in churches, the term worship leader means you do like 5 different duties, so you've got your hands full. But to be able to unplug for that system for a minute and just be an ambassador for Jesus and be His hands and feet and voice proclaiming hope to everybody in the room that they get an opportunity to lead is huge. And I think we live in church culture and we speak in worship leader lingo, and I think for us as leaders to really think about who's sitting out here that we're in front of right now. We've got moms and dads that may not be speaking to each other right now. We've got students that they're struggling with high school and the ups and downs of a relationship like that. You've got, other families that may have lost a loved one this past month. There's major stuff going on in each of our rooms in our churches every week. And we have this massive opportunity to actually connect people's hearts to the one hope of the universe. This is Christ. And I think, for a lot of leaders, there's not been anyone walk alongside them to empower them to know that they, with Christ's power through them, can proclaim good news to the poor. And it's more than just singing a song, It's more than just saying, hey guys, let's stand up on our feet today and worship, to a person who has no idea what worship even means. But for a leader to be able to stand up and say, just be real with people and say, hey guys, welcome to whatever our church is. I don't know what this week's been like for you. Whether it was up or down or crazy, whether you're about to throw in the towel, we want you to know today that we're about to sing to the God who is the one hope for the entire world. Yeah. That's a different thing than just, saying kind of the insider thing that we all gravitate toward because, we're all in ministry. But Jesus did it over and over again when He was on the planet. He told parables and He was trying to reach out, and make a connection with people. But when we as worship leaders let people know that we're authentic and real and that, we just want to love them, we want to love them well as we lead. And that happens, man, I see it time and time again. People, walk away going, wow. And they won't say that was a great worship leader. They'll say what a great God. I want to know that God. And then it becomes about us just being reflections back to, the hope of Christ week after week.
Yeah. You're saying that we're leading a lot of people who are going through all different kinds of things throughout the week, and husbands and wives not talking to each other or whatever different struggles. I know when I was leading worship, from week to week, one of the struggles I had was sometimes I was that guy who had a really rough week. And, and it's Saturday night or Sunday morning, and I'm like, I am the last person that is worthy to be standing up here and singing those songs. And, I'm sure other worship leaders have that same experience. Maybe we just don't say it so often. But, what do you say to those guys that just plain, you just don't feel worthy when you're up behind that microphone because it's been a bit of a train wreck for you that week, for whatever reason. Have you experienced that before, or what?
Absolutely, and that's one of the main things I try to pass on to leaders, Ryan, is that we have to remember the truth, okay? And we talked about it with songwriting a minute ago, how you can separate our songs from, who we are. And we have to be able to separate our performance from who we are. And so when this happened, a couple of months ago, I was at a church actually the same church in Mississippi that I was telling you about with coaching, and I was getting ready to go out and lead worship, and Carrie, my wife, and I, we've got 4 boys, so sometimes if I'm out of town, it can get a little crazy. And, we're talking on the phone, and I could tell she's frustrated. I'm not at home. There's nothing I can do to help. And, oh, by the way, Todd, you're about to lead people to Jesus in 10 minutes. And that happens on a Sunday morning. That can happen with, for all of us as leaders, we're being asked to stand up. But here's the beauty of it. We're not being asked to stand up based on, how good we did. We're being asked to stand up and in the power of Christ, in the truth of who we are as His redeemed kids, and the power that raised Him from the dead in us to proclaim hope to the poor. So that's the most true thing about us. The lie is that, hey, you didn't perform so well this week, so you're not worthy. Well, if that was our bar, none of us would be able to preach or sing. So this idea, and that's why this whole thing, this whole worship, thing, all of life comes down to Christ. And it comes down to Him being perfect for us, His power in us to proclaim news, to give us victory and proclaim hope to everybody that we're in front of, and to walk and stand in that and allow Him to hold us up and allow Him to speak through us. And man, it's hard. I know it's hard when we don't perform the way we wish we had. It's hard for me if Carrie and I get in an argument and I'm at fault. But it's beautiful to be able to detach from that for a minute and go, okay, Lord, I know that we're going to be okay because you're our Savior. And I know that right now, circumstances, there's a little miscommunication going on. But I know this. I know that you are alive in me. And you're going to accomplish this work you've called me to do. And so I just relinquish all of my performance, everything to you. And I want you to lead strong through me today. I want you to bring people to yourself. So here I am. Here's my body. Here's my voice. Here's my mind. And I want people to see the Savior of the world through me today. And that's a different, totally different thing. But man, it's hard, I think the number one thing the enemy would want to do with all of us is before we get up to say, how what are you doing going up there? What do you do going up there saying that there's this God who's capable of, healing when you're struggling with this or that. And that's why it's so important for us to know who we are and say, nope, let's go to the cross. Nope, let's go to the empty tomb. Nope, let's go to our position. We're seated in the heavenly realms of Christ, and we're heirs to the kingdom. And the more we renew our mind to the truth of that, it overwhelms the darkness and overwhelms the struggle. And we begin to confidently, the pattern of walking confidently in His strength and His power is what happens. And ultimately, man, that's what people need. People don't need Todd Fields on his best day. That's not going to help anybody. They need a broken guy who's at the end of himself, and God's continually been faithful to, hammer me and chisel me, and I'm sure there's a lot more coming. But I just want people to see Jesus, and He's the only one that can give their lives hope. So.
I was just sharing with someone yesterday that one of the realities of our social media world that we live in is that sometimes it can seem like if you log into Facebook, like everybody's having such an awesome day.
Yeah.
What's going on with me? And you know, I just think sometimes it's good to remind ourselves, and maybe worship leaders need to tell each other, even it's good for you and I to just, you know, declare it kind of publicly that you know, sometimes you're having a rough day and it's your identity isn't in that, and it's, you know, we just need to kind of remind ourselves that it's okay. We are human, and I can definitely say on some of the worst days or weeks that I had, and I, you know, I could just remember cowering behind the curtain thinking, I can't go out there. Please don't make me go out there. But I would go, and something would happen. The Spirit would come, and there'd be like brokenness in the place, and you know, it's just how God works. But I really think that as worship leaders, we just need to keep telling each other, look, I don't have it all together, and don't think I do, you know?
Yeah.
Because it's tempting, you know. We look at, Todd Hiller at North Point, and what an amazing church, and you hear the podcast, and it all seems so great, but, you know, or whatever. We all have these sort of public persona images we see of each other, and I don't know. I just really feel that it's important that we also get reminded that we're human. You know, this is a stressful season. Some people listening in are buckling under or heading into a season that it's going to be overwhelming. And, you know, unfortunately, I can't fix that, but I think we can say, you know, we know what that's like. We're there with you, and, you know, and, I don't know. It's just a good message to bring. So, could I just ask you, Todd, as we wrap this up? We have a couple other questions, but I think I just want to close by asking if you would pray for all of us who have been listening in to you, and just pray over all of us as worship leaders and pastors and directors who are heading into a season that just has this whole extra layer of burdens and pressures and expectations, some of which we just put on ourselves. And I just pray that there'd be that light and grace and peace that would kind of shine through, you know, as we reach into our communities and that are coming into our churches this season. So would you do that for us? And then we'll
absolutely
from there. Okay, that'd be great.
Father, thank you so much for this time today, and for your servants listening in today and participating. God, we thank you that we're all on the team of Jesus, that we're all representatives of the kingdom of God for this generation, Lord, for this time period. Help us remember that our days are short, to maximize this time, God, but in the midst of this season, which can become so hectic and crazy for each of us, because we really want it to be great. We want we want our plans to be great for you. We want people to see you. Lord, help me, help us all in the midst of that, to truly understand in this season what it means to rest in you, to abide in your perfect strength. God, to abide in your power to accomplish what you want to do, Lord, at all of our churches around the globe, for your name. As we head into this Christmas season, we ask that you would be who people see, and give us wisdom, Lord, just with the practical calendar issues and scheduling. Help us to keep margin so that we don't neglect the people who are important in our lives, that we get one shot with, our family. And help us to encourage each other and our teams toward that. But at the same time, Lord, be diligent to work hard when we're called to work hard, to present the most amazing message the world has ever heard during this season to so many people who will give our churches one shot this year. Would you be seen mightily, Lord, and would you just bring hope to so many through every person that's listening right now, to know that they're empowered by the Savior of the universe. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Todd. And
Yeah, man.
I just want to say that if people want to follow you on Twitter, because you had mentioned about that,
Yeah.
is that just at Todd Fields?
Yes, that's it. That's it.
Okay. Well, I'll be following you as soon as we get off this call. Look forward to that. And also just want to say that we've got this listening party thing where we're streaming your album. We've got the charts for that.
Great.
Let There Be Light. So we've been really thrilled to be in this kind of relationship with you guys. And somehow
Absolutely.
your people are connecting with my people, and they've got music is flowing through the net and getting online and shared around. And it sounds like a lot of PraiseCharts users are just lapping it up. So it's great. Thank you for helping resource our world, and we're glad to partner with you in that. So appreciate that.
Man, thank you. It's an honor.
Okay.
Thank you for what you guys are doing for the church.
It's our privilege and our great joy. So Merry Christmas, everyone, as you all head into this season, and I hope you go out of this feeling encouraged and strengthened and tap into some of these great resources. And God bless you all. Thank you, Todd. Have a great rest of your day in Atlanta, and I'm up here in Langley, BC, in the pouring rain, but I'm going to go try and look for sunshine. All right. Thanks, Todd.
You bet. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye then.